Hello. Through the presentation Towards Livable Cities, Objectifying the Emotional Experience in the Built Environment, we aim to present the Emotion Project, which we are developing through an interdisciplinary approach, bringing together architects, a biology research laboratory, an industrial partner, and an architecture festival. This project was born from a simple yet ambitious question: how can we objectively measure what architecture makes us feel? This question is universal because we spend 90% of our time in built environments: homes, offices, hospitals, and even public spaces. And yet, the question of what these spaces truly make us feel remains, to this day, largely unanswered in any objective way. Some places soothe us, others create stress. But how can we prove it? How can we measure it? It's clear that building means responding to a need. But this need goes far beyond simply having a roof and walls for shelter. Research such as that conducted by Sarah Williams Goldhagen demonstrates that the built environment directly influences what we think, feel, and do. Design, therefore, creates the framework through which we experience a place, shaping our well-being, our physical health, and even our community life. What we feel in a space is not a vague impression. It is the result of a constant interaction between our sensory inputs, light, sound, matter, cognitive processes, and emotional responses. The cognitive and the emotional are closely intertwined systems, as neurobiologist Joseph Ledoux demonstrates. Let us take a concrete example. Urban noise and the absence of vegetation are characteristics of many built environments. These two factors generate stress in the individuals who live there, with a documented consequence: a negative impact on life expectancy. This connection is not intuitive. It is scientifically demonstrated. This shows that architectural design has real physiological effects. The World Health Organization defines health not as the absence of disease, but as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. It is clear that architecture is not a secondary matter. It is a major determinant of our health. And yet, this connection remains largely underexploited in public policy. What makes this issue particularly powerful is its universal nature. 68% of the world's population will be living in urban areas by 2050. The built environment is not a luxury reserved for a few. It is the shared living framework of all of humanity. Having objective tools to evaluate and improve this environment is a public health necessity. It is from this conviction that neuroarchitecture was born, a discipline that combines neuroscience and architecture to design projects adapted to the psychological and physiological needs of users. The French law of 1977 defines architecture as an expression of culture. Thus, architectural creation, the quality of constructions, and their harmonious integration into the surrounding environment are matters of public interest, as is health. Since antiquity, architecture has sought in the human body and mathematical proportions a model of harmony. The Parthenon is often associated with the golden ratio, a symbol of ideal geometric balance. This relationship between measure, body, and space can be found in Vitruvius, and later in the Renaissance with Leonardo da Vinci and the Vitruvian Man, where the body becomes a reference for thinking about architectural proportions. Up through the 20th century with Le Corbusier's modular, architecture thus appears as a discipline that seeks to create a harmonious relationship between space and the human being. In the medical field, an approach has emerged: evidence-based design. It consists of grounding design decisions in data drawn from post-occupancy evaluations. We know, for instance, that high ceilings inspire a sense of freedom, that vegetation reduces stress, and that natural light shortens hospital stays. These findings remain declarative or observational. That is where the limitation lies. Measuring emotions without disrupting them. That is the central challenge. Questionnaires capture the subjective, but with biases. Physiological measures are objective, but lack molecular specificity. Neuroimaging is powerful, but cumbersome and ill-suited to real-world settings. None of these approaches provides a direct reading of the molecular signature of emotions in real-life situations. That is precisely what the salivary test makes it possible to envision. This, then, is the barrier we are seeking to overcome with the Emotion Project. How can we measure the emotional impact of architecture in real-world conditions in a non-invasive way and applicable to a wide audience? The Emotion Project brings together four complementary partners, unprecedented in their combination. CIS, 2, DIAG, a CNRS biology laboratory, contributes expertise in biomarkers. An architect professor and researcher bridges the gap between spatial design and scientific analysis. The Festival des Architectures Vives in Montpellier provides a real-world research setting, and an industrial partner supports the development of applications. The central hypothesis of emotion is as follows. Biomarkers present in saliva, such as cortisol or alpha amylase, can objectively quantify the emotional and physiological states induced by architectural spaces. In other words, what you feel in a space leaves a measurable biological trace. Why saliva rather than MRI or EEG? Because those require heavy equipment, controlled settings, and motionless subjects. A salivary test takes just a few seconds, needs no bulky equipment, and can be performed by anyone, anywhere. That is what makes our approach scalable. Our research setting is the Festival des Architectures Vives in Montpellier, because it generates rich multisensory experiences and strong emotional engagement among an extremely diverse audience: families, students, professionals, tourists. Every year, the festival opens the courtyards of historic private mansions, usually inaccessible to the public, by installing contemporary architectural works within them. This confrontation between heritage and creation generates strong and authentic emotional responses: surprise, curiosity, aesthetic appreciation. With 16,000 visitors of varying ages, backgrounds, and cultures, the festival offers an exceptional representative sample. The FAV is an ideal research setting for several reasons. First, the installations are varied and documented, which allows for testing precise architectural variables. Second, the audience is large and diverse. Furthermore, visitors come of their own accord, in a spirit of curiosity. And finally, everything takes place in real-world conditions, not in a laboratory. The 2025 edition featured 13 highly varied installations. Among them, we selected 2 for our study, chosen for their emotional contrast and their strategic position along the visitor paths. Site 2, Janine, is a fragrant, light, and poetic work that evokes nostalgia and pleasure. It welcomes visitors at the beginning of the walk. Site 10, The Last Cheeseburger, is a committed installation addressing overconsumption, one that provokes and invites reflection. It closes the walk. On one side, charm, on the other, a warning. This contrast was precisely what we were looking for to test the sensitivity of our protocol. The protocol was straightforward: a questionnaire before the visit, a free exploration of the installation, and a questionnaire afterward. 2 teams of 2 people were deployed simultaneously across both sites. Result: 189 participants with a refusal rate of 25%, which is a normal rate. It should be noted that we worked with questionnaires only, as the response from the Committee for the Protection of Persons regarding salivary biomarkers was still pending. Their integration is planned for the 2026 edition. The festival audience is highly diverse. Average age 52, ranging from 19 to 87, 70% women. 63% are regular festival goers. Almost all visitors aged 70 and over have been attending for several years, while the majority of those aged 19 to 30 were visiting for the first time. We measured 8 emotions on a 3-level scale. Before seeing the works, visitors already feel good, happy, relaxed, with few negative emotions. After the visit, the profile becomes more complex. They feel less happy and less relaxed, but more surprised and more charmed, and sometimes also more anxious or uncomfortable, specifically in response to Site 10. The installation, therefore, have a real and measurable effect on emotional state. The comparison between the two sites is striking. At Site 2, Janine, after the visit, negative emotions decrease further and participants feel noticeably more charmed. At Site 10, the last cheeseburger, the visit significantly increases anxiety and discomfort, but also surprise and charm. The same method applied to two different works produces radically distinct emotional profiles. Our protocol is sensitive. The spontaneous words noted by visitors confirm and enrich the quantitative data. Site 2, beautiful, softness, lightness, charm, airy, harmony in an entire lexical field of sensory poetry and calm. Site 10, disturbing, awareness, overconsumption, alert, anachronistic, a vocabulary of intellectual engagement and unease. This qualitative analysis validates the relevance of our site selection and shows that the questionnaire successfully captures differentiated responses according to the architecture, a result we did not expect with such clarity. The venue itself contributes independently to the emotional state of visitors. After the visit, across both sites combined, the vast majority feel happy, relaxed, and charmed. The venue amplifies or shapes the emotions produced by the work. At Site 2, the light-filled and flower-lined courtyard amplifies the lightness of Janine. At Site 10, the solemnity of the Hôtel de la Grave amplifies the alerting effect of the work. This is an architectural variable in its own right, one that our future protocols will need to incorporate. For 2026, we will move to the next step, integrating salivary samples with the CPP approval we have applied for. This will be the first time that objective biological data and subjective declarative data are cross-referenced in this type of setting with this type of audience. That is precisely the ambition of the Emotion Project. In the long term, the data collected by Emotion will enable the construction of exposome emotion models. The exposome refers to the totality of environmental exposures that shape our health throughout our lives. Motion adds a new layer to this, the emotional response to architecture. The expected outcomes of this research are at once scientific, economic, and societal, with the aim of establishing ways to design architecture using objective data in service of health for all. On the scientific front, Emotion represents a major step forward, moving from a qualitative understanding of architectural atmosphere to objective, measurable, and reproducible data. It is a direct contribution to exposome emotion models and a new tool for neuroarchitecture, which will finally have access to real-world data rather than laboratory data alone. The societal impact of emotion extends beyond the scientific sphere alone. In architecture and urban planning, emotional data, until now impossible to objectify, would become a new decision-making tool, alongside technical, environmental, and programmatic parameters. In the longer term, this work paves the way for evidence-based architecture, buildings and public spaces designed to optimize emotional well-being, new economic sectors linked to emotional technologies and biotechnologies, and urban public health policies capable of reducing environmental stress factors. Finally, by enabling festival visitors to carry out their own tests and see their emotions measured in real time, this project establishes a direct and unprecedented connection between scientific research and the general public. On the economic front, Emotion opens the door to new frameworks for evaluating built spaces. Much like environmental certifications that transform sustainable construction, one can envision emotional quality labels, attesting that a space is designed for the well-being of its users. These tools would become new differentiating arguments for project owners and local authorities. In conclusion, Emotion is grounded in one conviction. Emotional data is the next transformative lever for livable cities. We know how to measure carbon, noise, and temperature. It is time to measure what spaces make us feel. Measure, understand, design that is the trajectory we propose through a fertile dialogue between architects and scientists.